fifth in our, really Gordon's, but we like it so well, we're claiming at least association with it, if not credit for it. Centennial series marking, of course, the incorporation of legal education into Marquette University in 1908. This is a group that scarcely requires introduction, but nonetheless, Phoebe Williams of our class of 1981, Janine Geske of our class of 1975, both members of our faculty. Someone who, in our hearts, is still a member of our faculty, Chris Wiseman of the class of 73, Provost of Loyola University. You should apply for emeritus status in our class.
You get an office in the new building, you know.
Hey, maybe that would cause me to.
Tom Hammer from the class of 75. Mike McChrystal was supposed to be here, but had to be unexpectedly out of town. And that's good because the class of 1975 was overrepresented even otherwise in the course Gordon. So, Gordon, please.
Well, I'm going to say very little. But first, just a reminder that the final session of the symposium will actually be this coming Tuesday, and that will feature reflections on the events of the last 2 decades. Probably there's no better name known in the law school today, at least the names of people who are not around, than the name of Robert Bowden, although I think increasingly, certainly our students have less and less idea of who he was or even when he was. But this session was designed to focus on the Bowden era in the law school's history. All of our panelists were students at the law school when Professor and then later Dean Bowden was in charge, and all were appointed to the faculty, at least in large measure, through the efforts of Dean Bowden. At least that's my understanding. So this would be very much a Bowden era panel. I'm going to turn to my colleague Tom Hammer first to begin with.
Okay, and thank you, Gordon, and thank you for the invitation to appear on the panel talking about the Bowden years. I personally have such fond memories of Dean Bowden because, number one, he was my teacher, and a marvelous teacher he was. He taught the professional responsibility wing of the curriculum as well as bankruptcy law, and was just a magnificent instructor and model of clarity at the podium. My fonder memory of him, though, is in my early years as a faculty member. I was hired onto this faculty as an adjunct professor in 1980, and had the great privilege of serving with Dean Bowden as a faculty member until he passed away. And during that period of time, he and I became very, very close friends. And so he remains very much a living memory for me. As far as being a member of the class of 1975 on this faculty, yes, Professor Geske is a member of that class, as is Professor McChrystal. We've also had a couple of our classmates serve on the adjunct faculty. I do remember it being somewhat disconcerting when I went through the process of being hired, because when I was in the office being interviewed by the late Professor Leo Leary, a legend in his own right, he asked and mused kind of aloud as to whether it was the responsibility of the law school to hire the entire class of 1975 onto the faculty. And my response to that was, no, just one more, all right? Let me forget about the rest. So, okay, I thought it would be useful in preparing for this afternoon's class meeting. Everything's a class. Right. That it would be useful to look back through the official bulletins of the law school from the era that we are considering. And this was kind of a trip down memory lane for me because of my student years here as well as my longtime service on the faculty, which includes these years. But I thought it might be instructive, particularly since it's my privilege to be on the panel with such 3 distinguished women here, to turn to the bulletin of 1968, which is the beginning of the period we're talking about, and to review in that bulletin the stated and published objectives of the Marquette University Law School at that time. Right? And let me just share a couple of lines from the official mission of our school. The objectives of the law school are the same as those of Marquette University itself. As a professional institution, however, the law school has certain additional distinctive goals. Included among them, it aims to equip men with sufficient technical skill for admission to practice. So, I'm quite curious, as I'm sure you are now that you've heard that, to find out just exactly what my three distinguished colleagues up here were doing here at a law school designed to equip men with the skills necessary for admission to practice. Maybe you had those skills that didn't need to be equipped.
Actually, we were making life interesting for you.
Okay. Well, it seems that remained the objective of the law school until 1974 or so, when the language was changed to talk about equipping graduates. And I just can't help but think that it was the likes of people like Christine Wiseman here in our building that caused the powers that be to change this and to broaden our mission to include our female colleagues. So anyway, that was 1968. I'm the chairman of the curriculum committee of the law school and have served on that committee for many, many years. And because of my interest in the curriculum, I asked Gordon whether it would be appropriate if in my brief remarks this afternoon, if I might focus on the curriculum. There are some other things that I hope we'll have a chance to comment on as well. But just to get this going, I thought it would be interesting to think a little bit about the curriculum of the law school, what it was like in the 1970s, and to see how it changed over the course of the 1970s, and in some important respects established a foundation for a lot of what has come to pass since the 1970s. And to assist us in looking at the curriculum development over the course of primarily the 70s, I've had duplicated a little handout, which I hope everyone has, that depicts the curriculum in 1970, 1975, and then at the end of the 70s in 1979. And a few of the observations I have about the curriculum of the 70s will come as absolutely no surprise to those in the group here who went to law school before the four of us did. Anyone who went to law school after the 1970s, and certainly contemporary students, would be very surprised at the type of curriculum that we had. And the first observation to make, and this is really true throughout the course of the time period that we're looking at here, is that this was a heavily required curriculum, so heavily required that all the way until the very end of the 1970s, virtually the entire first 2 years of the 3-year experience involved the taking of required courses. There were virtually no elective choices until you became a third-year student. Secondly, although the first-year curriculum of even today, right, focuses on certain core areas of the law, as you look at the way that curriculum was delivered in the 1970s, the courses were all 2 semesters in duration. And it really wasn't until later in the 1980s where we began compacting the 2-semester experiences into single-semester experiences. And so when my class went through law school in the early to mid-1970s, we took things like 8 credits of civil procedure and 8 credits of property, and I think it was 6 credits of torts and contracts.